Super Smash Bros. Melee has brought us all over the world to cities and states we would have never visited if not for a shared undying love for some video game from 2001. One of the most amazing parts about this community is its ability to spread its love for the game like a parasite playthrough in Pandemic 2, creating similar vibes in local card shops and function halls and way more places than I can name. Tournaments for Melee are literally all over the world, and we are one of the rare communities, forget video games, to have the privilege to connect with people both virtually and in person, no matter where you are. We like to believe that this community really has our f***ing back through thick and thin. We could be stranded in the middle of a random state we've never been to, and we could find someone from the Insert Your State Here Melee Facebook page and burn a couple hours with someone in front of a CRT and potentially find a couch to crash on. The hospitality and open arms that can be found in Melee communities everywhere have been present in our community for longer than most of us have been involved with it. These ideals might just be passed down from our ancestors, but we'd like to think that we've done a pretty damn good job at keeping their vision alive, sleeping on hotel floors across the globe. At the helm of this vision and the heart pump keeping us alive are Melee's tournament organizers. Tournament organizers, or TOs for short, are the people responsible for every single legendary tournament set or saltiest moment or hype compilation or whatever other GR Smash videos that are getting people to watch Melee for the first time. None of this shit would exist if it wasn't for the people putting the blood, sweat, actual loss of money, and tears into these events that define our scene. Tournament logistics is something we deeply care about because it's something we at Alston Melee have called our passion. Whether it's the events tied to the New England TO reading this script, or the continued ways that we've all tried to do our parts in supporting our community, we'd like to think that we have a tad bit of experience in this topic. Also, MattDotZeb helped. TOs are the reason that we're able to show up to the local every Wednesday, but they're also the reason we're able to book a flight to a state that we've never been to and feel right at home. No matter where we are in the world, we're confident that we can find someone to play Melee with, and we credit that to the amount of people passionate about hosting events for the game we all love. In this love letter to TOs, we'll be highlighting the achievements of tournament organizers we deeply respect, who have made significant impacts on not just local communities, but the general scene as a whole. That said, we have a few honorable mentions who absolutely deserve high regard for the work that they've put in for their local regions. Organizers like G-Town Tom, Watch from Japan, Team Air, Smash at IUB, The Mages, Recursion, Deadly Alliance, Chuck and Val, and many others have sometimes been the only reason their local scenes were active at all, and many other unmentioned heroes deserve your praise in the comments. These people are why we have nice things, and sometimes your recognition or praise can go a long f***ing way. I am actually so mad that we had to put Blur on this list, and here's Alston Melee's 10 tournament organizers who deserve endless love and recognition. Shouts out to Lucas aka Shifty Badger for the video suggestion, subscribe to Alston Melee for weekly Melee content, and number 10, the Crimson Blur. Can we just move on? Like, do I have to do this one? The Mr. Satan of Melee TOing, the Crimson Blur has undoubtedly been involved in some extremely important events, but how much he actually did can surely be attested. The Crimson Blur is the type of guy who likes to throw hot garbage at the wall until something sticks and catches on fire on Smash Twitter, and everyone kind of has their own personal beef with Blur that they would love to successfully prove him wrong on. As much as we could fill this entry with his dog shit opinions, Blur is a tournament organizer we begrudgingly fully respect and have even worked with at length before. The Crimson Blur gets props for his part in heading Team Oxy, a TO group who have made SoCal regionals look like majors from time to time, as well as hosting consistent important events in their region for almost a decade now. But we honestly credit Blur more for his part in trying to give Melee the esports light and fame it deserves, and attempting to bring new people into this community, not just on Twitch or at events, but helping get a couple big name companies interested in Smash. We could list off specific Blur accomplishments, but honestly that's just adding fuel to the fire, so to knock him down a few pegs, here's a Kirby beating him. If you're at all thinking, wow, they're being a little hard on this Crimson Chin guy, just scroll through the bait of an argument thread that his Twitter is, but while you're there, give Alston Melee a follow too. Could Blur have been higher? Probably. Is he? No. Number 9, Nintendude. Nintendude is one of those TO types who's known to enter and do well at his own events, but unlike the dude running the 13 entrant weekly for the $30 paycheck who doesn't give a shit about your bracket experience, Nintendude runs successful tournaments and bracket runs sometimes simultaneously. After being a part of multiple phenomenal events in MDVA, such as Pound's Return, once moving to NorCal, he'd somehow still occasionally find time to be staff at multiple Melee events, even when his focus is clearly a little divided with a job at Twitch. Nintendude's biggest gift to the Melee scene is probably his help with crafting the rulebook that the entirety of Melee has repurposed or slightly reworded over the years, but all of our rules are based off the 20-something page document Nintendude typed up. He absolutely was not the one to create these rules from the start, as most of them were common knowledge by the time it was created, but with the help of the talented TOs at Melee and Omni, this was the first time the community had ever received a rule set as professional and real as the one made by Nintendude. During his time with Twitch, Nintendude has made plenty of rule sets for other games and communities, and a version of his Melee rule set can be found in the details page of countless tournaments everywhere. Number 8, TO Joe. Toronto Joe and Even Matchup Gaming should be a source of inspiration for anyone complaining about their region's lack of exposure and presence in the overall community, because they have really put an insane amount of work into creating one high-profile Canadian Melee event after another. While you probably shouldn't credit the creation of Canada's scene to just one person or company, you can almost always be certain that if a Canadian Smash event is gaining some traction, it probably involves EMG in some beneficial way. Canada Cup, EGLX, GOML, DreamHack Montreal, and plenty of other amazing Canadian events are all under the EMG and TO Joe banner, and all of these events have made beneficial impacts on Canada's Melee community while being important events to Melee's history in general. While being a revered tournament organizer, Toronto Joe ain't half bad at Melee himself, but notably has pulled some upsets in other games and made some Melee players hate PM more than they already did. TO Joe has put in tons of work getting Canada's Melee scene to where it's at today, and he's the reason we personally have been to Canada. Number 7, MattDotZeb. Putting Matt at 7 might just be confirmation bias, but hey, f it, New England, baby. Matt has been getting his ass driven around to New England events to run the ship for over a decade, creating huge events in the scene with a clearly competent head organizer. Matt would bail on us for a while, which is something we would absolutely never do, thanks for the job. Matt's gift to the New England scenes are seriously things that we'll forever be appreciative of, including the culmination of all of his local events into Boston's first major, Shine. But we honestly don't even really put him here for his work in NE. One of Matt's notable accomplishments is some real nerd shit, where he created a relatively complex formula used by tournament organizers to calculate how long their tournament will take based on the amount of setups you have and a bunch of other stuff. While Matt's function is still used by some TOs to this day, Matt's second notch made much more of a mark on the greater scene. We've covered this in a previous video already, so go check out our 10 best things to ever happen to the Melee community for a full look, but the Melee games had an undeniable imprint and created tons of people's first interaction with the competitive Melee scene, and the fact that we put it on a 10 best things video means that we think of it pretty highly. In recent days, MDZ has taken a full-time gig at Call of Duty's Esports League as one of the people not just leading their grassroots events, but all in-person and online events contributing to their league. As much as we've been known to send shots at whatever state Matt is currently living in, MDZ is someone we wholeheartedly look up to as a role model in our scene, as well as one of the closest friends we've ever made through this community. Number 6, Aiden Calvin. We have geeked out about our love for EGTV before. Seriously, we made a video just to give him props once. At the head of the always traveling Smash/Splatoon/Mario Kart/competitive eating grassroots tournament organizers is our colleague, idol, and friend, Aiden Calvin. Endgame TV has hosted events all over the world, along with a stupid strong European presence. Like we've talked about, EGTV really has the whole regional tournaments thing figured out, and if the traveling Melee regional is ever touring in your city, you should book a ticket to that show. But something we have to mention is that Aiden is a madman behind that laptop and TO desk, seemingly focused on breaking the decade-old rules of Melee TOing, and goddamn, that's just one of the reasons why we love him. For too long, Melee tournament organizers have kind of rode the if it's not broke, don't fix it wave of thinking, and Aiden has been someone constantly on the brink of innovation and creative problem solving. Hot takes from Aiden include players should be separated from how long they've competed, double elimination tournaments are a scam for about 60% of the people competing, and the Fortnite community is kind of nice to me. Hot takes aside, Aiden has absolutely put his money where his mouth is and has put his wild theories into practice to be tested in real life scenarios. Aiden has done things like top 128 best of 5, Melee redemption ladders allowing people to play tournament matches all weekend, and generally puts as much attention towards the people going 0-2 as winning the tournament. After putting a load of work in for the Smash community on the front end with his own events and also on the back end working for Smash GG, Aiden joined full time with the Beyond the Summit Smash team. His nothing but non-stop work and effort for the Smash community is just as relevant today, being one of the very few TOs on this list to step up and still be hosting events online in 2020. Whether it's his own event or it's one that he's helped build, Aiden has been behind the TO desk at countless important tournaments in Melee's modern history and has been consistently doing things for our community that we endlessly appreciate. Number 5, Alpha Zealot. Alpha Zealot is responsible or co-responsible for a massive list of events dating back to TOing the Bomb Tournament Series in Maryland, getting 105 entrants in f***ing 2005. Around this point, he started writing articles for Major League Gaming, who were just entering the Smash scene, covering multiple gaming communities along with Melee. In 2008, after years of support from the Smash community, MLG bought the rights to Smashboards with the goal of centralizing and growing the Smash community. We have to emphasize that Smashboards was still the most valuable resource for the community at the time. Smashboards was the sole place to find tournaments, promote your tournament, or grow your scene. 2 years later in 2010, still dedicating countless hours to TOing grassroots Melee tournaments and being damn good at it, Alpha Zealot would become the head tournament director for Brawl's debut in the MLG circuit. Regardless of how you feel about the sequel, Alpha Zealot made the community proud, showing the community's top-tier organizing skills at MLG, and he would be recognized for it. Alpha Zealot became involved and sometimes at the head of organizing many crucial communities at MLG, including Halo, Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, and many others. After a year on the circuit, MLG reported that they weren't sure if Brawl would be returning due to certain players being found guilty of splitting prize pools and being banned for bracket manipulation. From this point on, MLG's place in our community would be shaky at best. Alpha Zealot's last MLG event would be August 2012, and in the same year he'd be inducted into Smashboards Hall of Fame for being staff at more than 60 regional and major Smash events. But his place in the Smashboards Hall of Fame was about to grow 10 times fatter. On November 27, 2012, Alpha Zealot purchased Smashboards from Major League Gaming, continuing the dedicated server worthy of housing the largest Smash Bros community in existence. Alpha Zealot is someone who really believed in Smashboards all the way back in 2003, and in late 2012, still active in hosting events throughout all the years, he became the reason that experience could still happen for everyone. Smashboards still exists to this day, allowing anyone to dig deeper on game knowledge with shared colleagues or discover old relics if they want to. On April 16, 2015, following the footsteps of the people before me, I posted on Smashboards with the intentions of starting a local in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in Massachusetts that resulted in a tournament series that we like to think was a cool addition to the new wave of doc kids hosting tournaments in New England. Almost 5 years later from the post, the tournament series that was birthed on Smashboards can still sometimes be found in the same bumfuck nowhere town that I first posted about, just with a few new heads in the venue. But this really all started and was all possible in theory because of the community building tools that were given to us by a fellow Smash player and TO with the tag Alpha Zealot. Number 4, Juggle Guy. For anyone informed, Juggle Guy at the 4 spot seems f***ing blasphemous, but I promise things will make sense soon enough. Juggle Guy is an absolute legend in the Super Smash Bros. Melee community. 40 years from now, when a Fox player reverse wave shines a Marth player in their first match of Division 6 pools, above the registration standing desk in Space Detroit will be a UM jersey hanging from the rafters with Juggle Guy's name on it. Robin Harn is one of the very few people in this community who we can genuinely thank for holding Melee's hand as we transition into an adult. His commitment to making his home state of Michigan a hub for Melee has been extremely successful, and we cannot even fathom Michigan Melee without him. The Big House Tournament Series had humble beginnings in 2011, but nowadays it's an easy 1,000+ person event that has been the first Melee major for countless people. Juggle Guy's events are known for flawless execution and are a part of the argument for some of the best direction and organization of any Melee event that has ever happened. This man puts together teams of the best organizers from different states, which has consistently led to some of the best run Smash events. Juggle Guy's Hall of Fame spot in Melee at this point is a given, and this list is filled with nothing but legends. But maybe he'd be higher on the Grind PR one. Almost every top player has commented their appreciation for the high caliber of events, but Juggle Guy deserves every single bit of praise thrown his way. Number 3, Sheridan. Sheridan is another goated Melee tournament organizer, and putting either him or Juggle Guy above each other was a hard task that we signed ourselves up for. Sheridan has been hosting the most important tournaments in California, a Melee hotspot and breeding ground for this community for a massive amount of time. In 2004, a really fucking important tournament happened. Sheridan had nothing to do with it, honestly, but he did get 97th at it. Maybe it was this wave of organizers that inspired him and that we're ultimately alluding towards in this video, but Sheridan would get to work in NorCal shortly after. After hosting local and regional Melee tournaments for almost 5 years at that point, in 2009, the Death by Robots crew, famous for their combo videos, were plotting world domination where everyone plots world domination at a Denny's at 3 a.m. Determined to do something massive for their home of NorCal on the basis that nothing of the scale had been done in California for a very long time, Genesis 1 in 2009 was planned on a napkins at the Denny's restaurant. Okay, not really, probably, but kinda. Sheridan and DBR hosted Genesis 1 to a massive success and built narratives on concrete floors that are still talked about today. Have I said that already? A storyline and narrative would be built on concrete floors that is still talked about 11 years later. And fostered competition in California that spanned beyond country borders and eras in Melee's history. After Genesis's 2 success, let's just call it a success and move on, DBR went relatively quiet on the events that they were hosting. Sheridan continued to be as involved with Smash events, both at the local and major level, being a phenomenal tournament organizer known for nothing but quality, already hosting events for 5 years in 2010. 2 years later in 2012, a group called Melee at On Me was formed with a combining effort including Scar, Prog, Juggle Guy, MattDotZeb, Sheridan, and a couple others. This group's creation is truly a pivotal point in Melee's life, as they were at the helm of things like getting Melee back into EVO, E3 Smash 4 Invitational, and the birth of modern top 100 Melee rankings. To be fair, many members of this group are a part of this list, but we throw in Sheridan's entry because of his dedication to the group's efforts, like the rankings and the logistics side, and narrative for the video. At the end of 2015, an event that was begged and pleaded for was finally announced after almost 5 years of asking. We really believe that Genesis 3 set forth a new era of Melee, and that era included new storylines, multiple 1,000-person tournaments, and most shockingly of all, actual recognition from the boys in white and red. Genesis 3, along with being officially sponsored by Nintendo, was the second Melee tournament to ever get more than 1,000 entrants for Melee only, but it was the first grassroots tournament to ever do it, with EVO 2015 being the other. The genocides that would consistently come after are tournaments that we confidently call Melee's favorite tournaments. Whether it's the continued and building narratives, the top 8 crowd experience of a ballroom full of people screaming for their favorite player, or the true realization of a Smash tournament for everyone, Genesis is the first tournament we'd recommend every time to someone looking for their first major experience. Sheridan is known for being the person who thinks of everything. That could be having a full spreadsheet checklist of every single thing in exact order that must be completed one task after another, or having a full qualified team who works flawlessly together, moving like an impromptu flash mob, Everything is covered and everything is thought ahead, creating a perfect show. Juggle Guy and Sheridan, while separate on this list, are a part of the wave of tournament organizers fully accomplishing the goals of the organizers that came before them. Normalizing the ideas of 1,000+ entrant events in professional and welcoming ways, while helping create and build the narratives of things like the top 100 Melee rankings, Sheridan and Juggle Guy are no doubt two extremely important people to Melee's history. But there were people who came before them. Number 2, the Kish Brothers. Kish Prime, Kish Squared, and Kish Cube made the Kish Brothers, a TO group responsible for tons of important Midwest events in Melee's competitive conception. Like we briefly touched on in our last video, the Midwest part in the 2002 to 2004 birth of grassroots Melee can be overshadowed by California's and MDVA's coverage, but these events were undoubtedly some of the reason that organizations like MLG noticed us. Tournaments like Flame of Bowser and Melee FC were hosted by the Kish Brothers and the crew that they were a part of called Ships of Fools, who were creating 100-person tournaments in 2004. Teaching everything from how to host your own local tournament to how to hold the ledge and kill the other guy easier, the Kish Brothers in their own right were damn good at the game, known to place highly at their own events. In 2003, after both of his brothers had been competing and starting to host events already, Kish Cubed entered his first tournament and did what very few do at their first bracket entry, and won money. Getting second place, Kish Cubed shocked the Midwest folk who had been attending weekly, and especially the 3 already notable players who lost to him. Kish Cube's results continued to be just as impressive for the time, taking sets off of highly seeded players who had been playing for years at that point. At some point in 2004, after years of complications, Kish Cubed underwent an open heart surgery, replacing his heart with a transplant. His surgery would be an initial success, and soon after he was placing higher than ever at Melee tournaments. But unfortunately, complications from the surgery would reappear in late 2004. On January 15, 2005, Daniel Kish, aka Kish Cubed, passed away due to rejections with the heart transplant, and the Melee community lost an absolute legend. MLG made a donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, a company that was very close to home for Kish Cubed and his brothers. Kish Cube's last tournament result was Flame of Bowser 3, hosted by his brothers in November 2004, where he went on an incredible run, beating players still regarded as extremely talented old school players now. On his best bracket run to date, he beat DSF, Eddie, Dreffen, and others to claim first place. Kish Cube's memories will be forever held close in the hearts of Melee players for as long as this scene exists. RIP to a true Melee legend, Kish Cubed. After Kish Cube passed, Kish Prime went on to do multiple revolutionary things for the Melee scene that are still consistently found in every single Melee local you have ever been to. The stage list and banning procedure that we still use to this day was started and slightly tweaked from the initial rule set that Kish Prime implemented. The idea and format of crew battles is credited to Kish Prime. In 2006, Kish Prime pushed and helped create a national Melee rank listing 25 of the world's best players. Extremely ahead of his time, he'd attempt to recreate and make this a yearly thing, but was met with incessant backlash and qualms of unnecessity. This founding ranking would be the basis of the SSBM rank that would revive it in 2013 that we still use today, the same one that was eventually taken over by Red Bull. If the paragraph worth of still current accomplishments in 2005 wasn't enough, we'll leave you with this. The Kish Brothers believed local rankings to be one of the building blocks of creating and growing a local scene. This idea of power rankings and local top 15s that you can find across the world was something first implemented and still carried on by the ideas had by the Kish Brothers. This group of brothers had an extreme impact on the current shape, let alone of Melee in the Midwest, but the Melee community as it stands today. The Kish Brothers are people that we fully credit with building this scene in its most crucial moments, and we create these videos solely for the reason of sharing and continuing to pass on the accomplishments of players like the Kish Brothers. And our number 1 Melee tournament organizer, MattDotZeb. It's 1999. I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys is blaring on mega bass mode from your Sony Walkman, Bill Clinton just got fired from the White House, and some 13-year-old just started Smashboards. Yes, literally, some 13-year-old just started Smashboards. You have been absolutely kicking your home skillets to the curb and getting jiggy with Mario and the hella new rad Smash Brothers game that just released on the 64. You're pretty convinced that no one could hold a candle to you, but just to be sure, you boot up the dial-up connection to check. You type competitive Smash into Ask Jeeves and you find this weird website, Smash World Forums. You make an account, browse around at the nerds posting about percent stuff, and you move on with your life. 2 years later and it's 2001. That Walkman is now an iPod, that Backstreet Boys song is now Clint Eastwood by the Gorillaz, and that N64 is now a 2001 Okama GameSphere. After completely owning the noobs at the game store on midnight release, you yet again check that Smash World Forum thing from years past, but for a different intention this time. You just got that brand spanking new Melee disc and a sealed controller that will one day be worth $500 for free, all just because you won that bracket or whatever the hell they were calling it at GameStop, but you're eager for more. You think to yourself, am I truly the best goddamn Mario player to ever touch a GameCube controller? You know this to be true. You are the best Super Smash Bros. Melee player. At least you're pretty sure. Smash World Forum still has nothing to offer except more percent stuff and other nerd things. So you think, you know, I have nothing else to do, why not just create the grassroots Super Smash Bros. Melee community? MattDotZeb, after years of complaining about not being able to attend events, took matters into his own hands. We have to emphasize that there literally was not a Melee community at this time. There was no established procedure for finding or attending events, and there sure as hell wasn't anything being called grassroots. The only thing prior was release day tournaments, and those were privy to whatever game stores were able to do so, and were popularized much more by Brawl's release. MattDotZeb hosted Tournament Go 1 in San Jose, California, promoting the event locally and on Smashboards, which is credited as the first grassroots Melee tournament ever. This was a person who clearly cared about the Melee scene in ways before literally every person who's been a part of it. MattDotZeb would go on to host multiple Tournament Goes, creating norms in the scene such as double elimination brackets or venue and entry fees and payout structures for the top. Even all the way back in 2002, MattDotZeb saw the accessibility of Smash. While other organizers that followed in his footsteps tried to create adult-focused environments, MattDotZeb had the wherewithal to make his events as professional as possible and somewhere all ages could attend. MattDotZeb wouldn't take his own inventions for granted, proving that his Mario was a top force in Cali at the time. Like a fucking Robin Hood of Melee, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, NorCal Regionals featured an absolutely bonkers 13 grand for the top 3 Melee placings in March of 2003. Getting second at the event and making at least 3 grand, MattDotZeb funded it right back into his grassroots events and used that money to fly Captain Jack to the US for the first time. By Tournament Go 4, other organizers had popped up trying to replicate the events that MattDotZeb had created, and narratives and storylines were fully taking a hold of the Melee community, with the new kids starting to take the reins by the end of 2004. The Breaking Edge 30-person tournaments had evolved into the first 100-person tournaments ever, gaining national attention from anyone searching for competition, all TO'd by MattDotZeb. The Tournament Go series is credited with being the starting battleground for players like Vociferous, Ken, Isaiah, Azen, and many more, but more importantly, the idea that anyone can host a Melee tournament. MattDotZeb's efforts wouldn't be in vain, and Tournament Go 6 would be the last Melee tournament MattDotZeb ever hosted, for a pretty damn good reason. In 2005, Matt Del Green got hired and recognized by Capcom to be Director of Brand Marketing and Esports. He'd go on to become Capcom's Senior Product Manager, credited with creating the Capcom World Tour and having a helping hand in EVO's success. MattDotZeb was the first person to dedicate his time to growing and building a grassroots Melee community, and it's clear that he knew and loved this game. Terms like sex kick, chain grab, and shine were all started by the same person who is probably the reason we're able to click that dolphin icon and play online today. In 2017, Matt Del Green stepped down from Capcom after almost 10 years of creating their esports scene to work on his own adventures. and we just hope he knows how much we appreciate the things that he did in 2003. MattDotZeb, in our opinion, is the most important Melee tournament organizer ever because he really set the standard in a world where there was none. Even years after hosting his last Smash event, there have been rumors of his possible work behind closed doors. Matt Del Green has worked extremely close with both MLG and EVO in the past, and people can't help but speculate that he might have put in a good word or two that helped us out along the way. In a new first for Alston Melee, there is actually someone who still needs to be mentioned, and that person is number 0, any person who has ever dedicated their time to the Melee scene. This community would not have the 2 legs it stands on if not for the countless unpaid hours that members of this scene have put in for no benefit to themselves. Although you might seem small, random dude in Northwestern Ohio who's the reason that the Northwestern Ohio local rankings exist, I swear to f***ing God, you are just as important as the people on this list. It is everyone, and I mean everyone's job, to help create the community that you want to be a part of. Be the change in your local scene, create the events that you want to go to, volunteer at the bigger events you attend, and continue to pass down the stories of the legends who shaped this community before us. I fucking love Super Smash Bros. Melee, and if you do too, let's show the world this game.